Harvey's mother's funeral, and the Sunday morning tennis game. It was 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and I was getting the week's work organized, getting ready for Monday's assault, when the phone rang. It was Harvey. I said, "Why are you bothering me on Friday afternoon? Can't you see I'm busy trying to get my work done?" Harvey said, "My mother's funeral is going to be Sunday at 9 o'clock in Vinton Square. It's Stanetsky's." "Your mother's funeral?" I said. "I didn't know your mother died." "She hasn't," he said. "Excuse me," I said. "How can you have a funeral for somebody who hasn't died?" He said, "Well, she's having trouble breathing, and the doctors don't think she's going to make it through the night. And besides, my brother Billy is coming up from Vegas." I said, "Excuse me again, but just because your brother Billy is coming up from Vegas, that doesn't mean your mother has to die. Your mother is 98 years old. Your mother has made it through cancer. Your mother has issues with heart and has made it through. Your mother went toe-to-toe with Henry Kissinger at the Mass General. Your mother raised you and Billy. Are you going to tell me that a little breathing is going to stop your mother?" Harvey said, "The doctors are not optimistic." I said, "Well, what are you going to do if your mother doesn't die? Are you going to have a replacement for her?" At that point, I said, "By the way, have you called Andy yet?" He said, "No, I've been too busy arranging for the funeral." I said, "Well, what would you like me to do?" He said, "Well, I'd like you to call Andy." I was not looking forward to calling Andy. You see, Andy takes the tennis game very seriously. He's been setting it up for the last 25 years, every Sunday morning. The place, the people, the time. He takes it so seriously that he's even confided in me that if somebody calls us late on Friday to say that they're sick, he wants to see them fined on Sunday and pay more. I pointed out to them that perhaps somebody didn't know on Wednesday or Thursday that they were going to be sick. He said, "No matter, they're calling too late." As I said, Andy takes it very seriously, and I was not looking forward to calling him. But I did. As soon as I called, I could hear he was a little anxious. He said, "What's up?" I said, "Harvey's mother's funeral is going to be Sunday morning." He said, "I didn't know she died." I said, "She hasn't." He said, "Well, how can there be a funeral for somebody who hasn't died?" I said, "I asked the same question, but evidently she's having trouble breathing, and Harvey doesn't think the doctors think that she's going to make it through the night." Well, Andy said, "If it's Sunday and she hasn't died, couldn't they postpone it?" I said, "No, people are dying right and left." And he had to get a reservation. He said, "Well, what time is the funeral?" I said, 9 o'clock. He paused for a second, and he said, "That's the time of our tennis game." I said, "There's not much we can do about it." He said, "Well, can't we make it later in the day?" I said, "No, it's written in stone." He said, "Well, let me think about it." I called Harvey back, and I said I called Andy, and he was very upset. Was he upset about my mother? I said, "No. He was upset about the tennis game." Well, the funeral did take place on Sunday morning. His mom did pass away Saturday morning at about 6 o'clock. And Harvey delivered one of the most beautiful eulogies I've ever heard. He took us through the various decades she had lived. She was going to be 99. And he took us from 1910 through the First World War, through the Depression, through the Second World War, and he told us about raising Harvey and Bill. It was very beautiful. It was the first time in 25 years that the tennis game was canceled. Andy is recovering slowly.